is changing at a rate that we've never seen before. From business to art to sports, these changes are affecting every aspect of our lives. My name is Nick Kastner, and we're setting out to talk with the people who are altering the way things are done. Along with Alec McChesney, this is The Commonwealth. Our guest today is Sylvia Carrasco, who is the co-founder and CEO of Goldex, which is an app that is disrupting the gold industry. Sylvia has made Business Leaders list of London's 30 most inspirational leaders, and Computer Business Review describes her as the Sylvester Stallone of the gold industry. Sylvia, it is an honor to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Nick, for having me here.
So to start with, what is Goldex?
Well, Goldex is a startup based in London, and our aim is to become the first marketplace for both institutions and retail customers to buy and sell physical gold at the best possible prices. Okay,
so the people buying gold are both big corporations and personal investors, correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So. Effectively, the business itself is, set up the same way. Whether you are aiming to buy $10 of gold, or whether you are buying $10 million of gold. The whole point is that the gold market is a very siloed market. When you want to buy gold, you need to, as a retail investor, for example, you need to look at the different providers that are out there. You need to look at their prices that they offer. You need to look at the quality of the gold that they give you. Sometimes they force you to buy certain denominated bars or coins. Also, if they are selling gold per gram, they will have a minimum amount that you need to buy. Maybe it's a gram, maybe it's 5 grams. So as a retail investor, the issue is that you need to be navigating a myriad of providers to see which one suits you better. And of course, we can never forget the element of trust. Who do you trust? So once you have spent quite a lot of time researching who you should buy gold from, because it suits you, you then go and go ahead with that provider. What Goldex does is eliminate all that. The model that we have is dealers, market makers that come to the platform on an anonymous basis. They are posting the best prices. And effectively, when you want to look for buying or selling, Goldex does all the work behind the scenes for you. So first of all, we allow customers to buy as little as 1 cent. So there is no minimum required. Second, there are no minimum denominated bars. They, as I said, they can go down to a milligram of gold if they wish to buy that. When it comes to the prices, the Goldex platform basically has developed smart order router systems that always look at the dealer who is offering the best price. So you want to buy $100 of gold. We receive the $100. Of course, we do the KYC anti-money laundering checks to make sure that you are an individual that can go ahead in the platform. And the moment you hit the button buy, our smart router will effectively send that order to the dealer who is offering the best price. When it comes to sell, the routers operate the same way. Now, imagine today you were buying gold from a dealer and you want to keep that gold in their vaults. We have seen quite often that some dealers, not all of them of course, but some dealers take advantage of the fact that they entice you to go through the platform so that they give you a good entry price to buy your gold, because they know that when it's time to sell, you are forced to sell through them, to them.
Yeah.
So in certain situations, customers are not hit maybe at point of entry, but they are hit with a higher price or higher cost at the point of exit. Yeah. Now, the way we have structured Goldex, means that either you are buying or you are selling. We can always buy gold from the best provider, but we can also sell gold from the best provider. So we might have bought your gold from provider 1, and when it comes to sell, the best price comes from provider 5, and we will sell it to provider 5. So always looking at that best price. Of course, for the retail investors, they also have is via an app, which is downloaded on the app stores. At the moment, it's only UK only, I'm afraid. So we have quite a few requests from US individuals, but we are not there yet. But it will be.
Which countries are you in?
At the moment, we are UK only. We are going to be launching in the next 3 months in Europe.
Okay.
And then in Q4 next year, going to be launching in India as well. So the idea is for the retail investor to have one app where they have access to the best prices, a consolidated price for gold from a multiple amount of providers. They also receive trade recommendations, very easy to read, and they're short term, so they can actually benefit from the volatility. We also give them access to charts. They can have price alarms. So if there are certain prices that they want to be notified, we tell them. And also, very importantly, we give our own research to them, and we also put about 300 news feeds on the app. So pretty much anything that comes out on the internet in regards to gold is available. So it's a one-stop shop for those retail people without having to shop around, look around anymore. For the institutions, the institutions is a very interesting way of trading. Of course, they're not given an app. They have sophisticated APIs connected to us. And let's imagine you are a provider who has retail customers behind, and you want to offer gold to them. Now, at the moment, if you are, an institution that has retail customers behind and you want to offer gold, you don't have any other option than to connect individually to those providers. Those institutions, those companies, are not really offering their customers the best price. They're offering their customers the price of that provider. Also, they have another problem, which is if they want to have access to 2-3 providers, they need 2-3 connections, and that means 2-3 relationships, 2-3 reconciliation systems. Some of the customers will operate with one, and other customers will operate with other. So it becomes quite cumbersome and expensive for those providers. We are effectively the first hub which is multi-dealer. It's the first multi-dealer platform available. So for them, is quite easy understood that through a single connection, first they give the customers the best price, and second, through one connection, they get access to X amount of dealers behind the scenes without having to connect individually on a one-by-one basis.
Do you vet the gold providers?
Yes.
On the platform? What's that process like?
Well, there are certain amount of requirements that we enforce on them. The gold has to be of a certain quality. The vaults have to be in a certain vault, which is obviously the most well-known vault, which is Brinks. And pretty much all of them already have their gold stored with Brinks, but that is a prerogative that we ask them to have. They also have to provide quality on an allocated basis. They also have to be operating on a trust basis, because both the money and the gold that we hold on behalf of our customers is always in trust. So, and we expect our providers to also operate in a trust model with us. That means that should they go into liquidation, or should we go into liquidation, our customers' gold and cash is fully ring-fenced from creditors. So there are X amount of parameters, plus technical parameters that they need to abide to.
Yes, of course. And so are you doing anything with the exchange of the gold, of the physical material? Or like how does that exchange process look like?
Well, there is really no There is no physical movement. That's one of the reasons why all the providers always have the gold in the same, not the same vault physically, but within the same company that has 60 vaults across the world. So they pretty much cover the entire world. But there is no physical movement between the dealers. There is no physical movement between the dealers and Goldex. So it's actually quite a streamlined. Easy process as far as customer experience is
interesting.
concerned.
So that one vault company stores almost all the gold in the world.
Yes.
Wow, interesting. When did you start this? How long ago?
Well, the company, the idea first, the company was set up by myself because I wanted to solve a problem for myself. I decided to start looking at buying gold about 5 years ago. And I realized that the market was broken. As a retail investor, I was looking into an asset class, and I thought, well, hold on one second. Who do I buy it from? Why is this guy offering me the prices? Interestingly enough, of course, gold doesn't have a single price, so it's an OTC market. So there is no consolidated price tape, which means that every single provider out there will tell me I sell gold at the best price, which is impossible because the prices are different and they all say they offer the same, which is statistically impossible.
Yes, and the market fluctuates greatly, correct?
Of course, it's a volatile asset class. Definitely, the difference is that whereas if I am buying Apple shares, I know what is the price of an Apple share, and then I will pay a commission to the broker who sells me the Apple share. So it's very transparent. When I am buying physical gold, there is no such a thing as the price of gold. There are certain parameters, but that is where the dealers, of course, make their money because they are market makers, but they also charge me a commission. So as a client, as a retail person, that's where I realized that, I had to do a lot of research to look at who is really giving me the best price, who is really giving me what I want. And that's when I, obviously, with my background, I started digging more into it and realized that there was a big opportunity to disrupt the market. I wanted to solve a problem for myself. Effectively, and that's what made me, start with Goldex about 5 years ago.
Okay, interesting. And as I was doing research on your company, I was impressed with the roster of people that you're working with. For example, so you're correct me if I'm wrong on any of these, but your CTO is a former Goldman vice president. Your COO and co-founder was the executive director at UBS Investment Bank, which is a renowned Swiss bank. And your board members include the former CEO of Deutsche Bank and the former head of Asian markets for KPMG. So how did you take this idea and then surround yourself with extremely talented people?
Well, these are only some of the people you see. There are even more interesting people behind the scenes. If you look at our cap table, we are extremely privileged to have top financiers that if I was given their names, yourself and the listeners would know very quickly. Some of them Americans, actually.
Wow.
It all started, as I said, very slowly. First thing I did was contact my co-founder, who I had known for over 18 years. We had very similar careers. I come from Credit Suisse. He was at UBS, and we both are Spanish, and we both started working in electronic trading. Electronic trading for equities really started, the banks really started getting into it back at the end of the 90s. And there was a bunch of people that I probably think is about 10, 20 of us who in the city who decided to put together a protocol so that the banks speak the same language. That is called the FIX protocol. And from that moment on, we started developing from customers being able to place orders through their computers into the market without having to pick up the phone. Then the second thing was the algorithmics. So if you are buying 1 million shares of Apple, you can actually use algos to slice the order depending on the volume, depending on the price, depending on certain parameters. Credit Suisse actually was the first one to introduce algorithmic trading in equities, and then the other banks followed. Fernando doesn't like this because he always thinks that UBS were better, but he actually knows that Credit Suisse were the number one. Yeah.
So that product you developed while...
Yes, we developed all this.
Okay. You and your co-founder?
Well, we were doing... I was part of the team in Credit Suisse. Fernando was part of the team in UBS. Gentleman who was running Credit Suisse at the time, from a business perspective, is called Richard Balarkas, who is one of our board advisors. Wow. I credit him as the number one in the world when it comes to electronic equities trading. He is the guy who literally invented algorithmic trading. Wow. That business in Credit Suisse, we developed it from £0 to $7 billion in revenue in 7 years. Wow. So we then did multi-liquidity trading, etc. So we've actually seen the entire market in equities changing, and that is pretty much what we are doing now. Now, as I said, first I called Fernando, told him what I was doing. He got very excited. And then from that moment on, we started working full-time, developing the vision, having an understanding of the market better. And of course, we needed some funding, and we started calling some of our colleagues. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things I'm more proud of is that the people who have backed us up until now have been the majority of people in the industry, people who know that in our previous lives we were good at what we were doing. They have, obviously, when you invest early stage on a company like ours, you're backing the team, you're backing their expertise and their vision, but more importantly, you back the team. And they, it was, we were very high profile careers. We did very well, and our colleagues thought, well, if these people are doing this, I'm backing them up because they've, they have 20 years behind them showing that they knew what they were doing. So I'm very proud of that, and that's how we ended up having top people associated with us. And then day one is more difficult. As you get, as you grow the business, it becomes easier to tell people what you are doing and to be associated. I think the early days is always more difficult when you start any business.
We're going to take a quick break to let you know how you can help us grow this community. We view the Commonwealth as a group of people working to change the world. By listening and supporting this show, you're crucial members of the Commonwealth. To continue this work, we need help growing our community. Please invite your friends to like the Commonwealth's Facebook page. The link and directions are in our show notes. Now, back to the conversation. You mentioned earlier you're from Spain?
Yes.
Yeah, where in Spain are you from?
I'm from Bilbao, originally from the Basque region. Basque people are well known for being very stubborn, very strong, and to also be a matriarch society. So women are very powerful in the Basque culture. So it's no surprise for me to have the mentality that I have when I was growing up in a type of culture like this. Yeah. But I've already been in London for 26 years. Okay. So
how did you end up in London?
How long?
Yes. No. How did you end up in London?
Well, it was one of these things. I from Bilbao I went to live in Madrid. I finished university studies in Madrid. From Madrid, I was going to join the diplomatic service. And for that reason, I went to live in France, in Bordeaux. Other than drinking wine, I also did, some university studies in cultural relationships and politics. From there, then I moved to London. Again, I did, I went to City University to do some studies there on administration studies. And then it was a time for me to come back to Spain and sit down and study for 10 hours a day to pass the exams to join the diplomatic body. But then by that time, I had already part of my City University studies required me to do some secondment in the city. And once I got to the back of the city, I thought, no, I don't want to go back to Spain. I'm actually liking this. Of course, I was quite young. I enjoyed, making some money that you do in the city when you go into corporate world, and I found it fascinating. And 26 years later, I'm still living in London. I obviously have my house here. I've lived more in London than in my own country. And, I thoroughly enjoy living in London.
Yes, yeah. You mentioned that the start of your career was in culture and political science.
Yes.
It sounded like, yeah. How, what was it like then shifting into the finance world?
Well, I always think that I've personally been very, very lucky. It depends on the country. I'm not so sure about the US, but there is one thing I can tell you about the UK in comparison to Spain, which are the two countries I really know very well. In Spain, once you do, your life is very early on written for you. If I give you an example, when I went to university, I actually studied history, and then I did a master's specialization in history of art. So should I have stayed in Spain, my life would have been pretty much pigeonholed into history of art, either as a teacher or researcher or whatever shape or form, but it would always have been linked to this. There was no way for me to go into economics or anything of that sort. That's one of the reasons why I decided to join the diplomatic service, because for me it was a way out. I enjoyed my university studies, but I did not perceive myself as spending my whole life doing that. I like art, but I like to buy art, maybe, rather than not to have any money to buy no art.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the escape. Of course, that's the way in Spain things work. You do your studies and that's it. You are not moving from one side to the other. The UK is very different. In the UK, it doesn't really matter. You can reinvent yourself. You can. You are, the top investment banks, the top 4 auditing companies and consultants. They go to universities to speak to the students that have studied history, politics, religion studies. It doesn't matter what they've studied. They want them to be part of KPMG or Grant Thornton or JP Morgan. All that matters is that they have a brain, because they've done some studies in university, and the UK has the view that come to me, you have a brain, you can think, that's fine, I will teach you everything you need to know about electronic trading or shares or sales trading or convertible bonds or M&A. So the UK is fantastic for this, where you can really move along and basically become what you want to be without being put in a box where you just cannot move across, as it happens in Spain.
Interesting, yeah. And you touched on this earlier, but and I don't always ask female entrepreneurs about this, but you are a vocal advocate supporting more females in entrepreneurship. What makes you speak out on that issue?
Well, because I think it's necessary. Of course, speaking and doing nothing doesn't really serve to any purposes, but I think the first thing we need to do is talk about it.
Of course.
I see a lack of females setting up companies, especially fintech companies. And I think the main issue with the fintech companies is that whereas, I think people can set up pretty much any type of, you need to have worked in finance to set up a fintech company. I don't think anybody who's been selling, shoes can set up an asset management company online, because first you need to understand the asset management business quite well. So for me, the funnel is a woman who starts her career in finance, who then, after a certain amount of years, decides to set up a fintech company. And the issue comes, how many women join the finance world? And of course, it's higher than it was when I started my own career, but I don't think it's still high enough. Why is that? Well, you obviously have, we all have educational matters where in school kids are still treated differently. The boys are encouraged to take IT to develop the brains on IT. How many women developers do you have? Not many. Yeah. It's very rare. How many? You go still, I bet that you go still to a trading floor where you have 500 people and the majority will be men. Yeah. When I started in Credit Suisse, I can tell you that we were very few women. And if we wanted to go to the restroom, I had to go 2 floors up.
Wow.
And I'm talking about a trading floor we were probably between 500 to 1,000 people. Huh. So it was very few of us. I don't expect that will still be the case. Yeah. I'm sure that they have some restrooms on the same floor. But the bottom line is that I think it's an educational issue. Then, of course, women, they're expected or they want to have children. They don't only want to have a career, but there are certain issues where even though now you can work remotely, etc., at the end of the day, I've not heard so many couples where both the man and the woman, they are married, they've been married for certain years, they have equally interesting careers, and then they sit down one evening and say, okay, let's go and have babies. Who is going to stay at home? You or me? That conversation, I don't think it really happens. I mean, it can happen, of course, but I don't think it's the norm. The norm is that the woman is pretty much the one who is going to stay at home. Mm-hmm. There is no question. There is no even, usually that's not even challenged. And of course, however much we say that, we can do everything, it's not so easy to do everything. And I think women need more support on that sense. And I think it's also how women still, they still think that, of course, quite rightly, that what they want to do is set up a family, and they think that their life is not, setting up their own company is definitely too much to add to the equation. Whereas the man, if you think about it, he goes home, sees the kids in the evening or even the weekends, and then in the meantime he can go set up business, be very busy, be traveling, whatever, and nobody questions him. Of course, there are women who manage to do everything. They are the super women, but they are super women, and they shouldn't be super women. They should just be women, and there should be more of them. But it's just the way it is. So I try to encourage women to, first of all, have the confidence to set up their businesses, knowing that they are as good as the next guy next to them, or better. Mm-hmm. I think that a woman who has succeeded in certain verticals is probably even better than a man, otherwise she wouldn't have succeeded. As people who were working with me, these very few women who were sharing the trading floor with me, they've all had tremendous careers, and I encourage women to take the plunge. Don't do things. Always try to do what you want to do, and don't. The last thing you want to do is look back 20 years later and think, well, I wish I would have done this. If you have an idea, do it. It's very hard. It's extremely hard. And I always tell, potential entrepreneurs that no amount of me telling them how hard it is going to prepare them to how hard this is. However, it's extremely exciting. It's very rewarding, or it can be very rewarding. You are creating, something that, you're creating a baby, effectively. Somebody asked me on a podcast last week, what is the biggest challenge that you as an entrepreneur you've had? Yeah. And I said, well, the biggest challenge for me, I think, has never been the amount of hours, has never been the, practical issues to resolve. I'm an entrepreneur, I can think out of the box. There is always a way. If I have to jump a hurdle, in my head I can go over the hurdle, under the hurdle, on the right side of the hurdle, on the left side of the hurdle, but I will pass that hurdle, there is no question. But the biggest hurdle itself is the emotional hurdle, where every day you need to be prepared to be told no. Every day you have to be prepared that people disregard your idea, that people think that you're not good enough, that you will not succeed, that you're raising money and you run out of money, and you have the emotional stress of having to pay people, or you have the emotional stress of having to to sort out staff issues. So the emotional hurdle of setting your own company is, in my head, 10 times harder than the just tangible hurdles. And you need to have a very strong emotional head to continue to be resilient, to know that that it doesn't matter. You have a good idea, you have a good team, you have a good idea. Be resilient, continue. They put you down, get up. They put you down again, get up again. And that can happen 10 times a day.
Yeah.
And you start the morning very happy, 10 minutes later you're very upset. Then 20 minutes later you're very happy again. So the life of entrepreneur is being extremely volatile from an emotional point of view. So you are either extremely happy or extremely worried. And the lack of sleep always exacerbates these two emotions. So you have only two emotions when you are rolling the wave of being an entrepreneur. But it's definitely worth it.
How do you manage those emotional swings?
Well, people do different things. In my personal, in the way I do this is effectively being surrounded by people I can talk to. It's very, very important to talk. And I highly recommend this to male entrepreneurs. Women are known for, sharing the problems. They are known for, telling the friends or whoever they choose to tell them that, they are going through a rough time. Whereas males don't usually do this. They like keeping things bottled, not even to the friends. And that's why we see quite a high rate of suicide in men, much higher than in women.
Yes, yeah.
And the startup world is not different. We've seen recently an increase in male founders committing suicide. Obviously, it's very hard, as I said. It's a hard job to do. And being able to identify that, you might be in trouble and you need your support. So the support network of the entrepreneur, of the founder, I think is crucial. Whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's a network of an association of other entrepreneurs. That is very important. And that is how I deal with this. The other thing that I usually say is that if possible, try to have a co-founder. Sharing the burden between two people, in my eyes, is much better than doing it on your own. Nobody understands my troubles better than my co-founder. I don't understand his troubles better than me. I can pick up the phone and sometimes I am low and he's cheering me up, or sometimes he's low, I'm cheering him up. Come on, yes, we can do this. Let's do this together. So the value of having a co-founder who is there to support you and who you can talk to and you can share your worries means a lot, because that means that you already have that support that you need.
Well, thank you, Sylvia. Thanks again for coming on the show with me. As soon as Goldex launches in America, I will make sure to start investing in
Absolutely,
gold.
You're more than welcome. I will let you know.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
And that is it for today's episode. Thanks for being a member of the Commonwealth. If you enjoyed this conversation, please tell your friends about us and leave a review. If you're interested in helping us grow this community, please invite your friends to like our Facebook page. The link and directions are in our show notes. We release episodes every Monday, so stay tuned for next week.